Welcome to Time Traveling Team, the weekly podcast where we review every story of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Tricia.
I'm Paddy, and today's Rambling in the TARDIS, we take a look back at Leela and her time in the TARDIS. We'll be talking about her strengths and her weaknesses, and also listing her best and worst stories.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts on Leela, so as always, to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Team, that's TIMETEAMP on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or you can email us at timetravelingteam@teamproductions.com. Before we get into a couple of housekeeping things, first of all, my apologies that last week's episode was late. I was sick, so that was why. Better now. Very good. Also, me and Paddy were talking before we started recording about the next couple of stories, Christmas break, and stuff like that. So, Paddy, do you want to explain a little bit about the next season and what we're going to do for it?
Yes, so next season is known as the Key to Time arc. So it's all 6 stories are based on the one recurring plot point, which is a quest to recover the key to time. And therefore, each story builds upon the one previous. It's almost like a D&D campaign type thing. Or, for our listeners, a much more extended version of the Keys of Marinus.
Yes.
Yeah. So, now because, as many of you have listened to, this is all uncharted territory for Trish. So we were talking about it, and I think that, and as well for yourselves as well, to get the best possible experience of this, it's better to have it all sequential in our airtime. So rather than doing our episode next week and then taking our Christmas break, we're actually going to do a random rambling next week where we will talk about the last couple of years for the podcast, the Jodie run, or any questions and queries that you might want to bring up and get our opinions on. And then we're going to take our Christmas break, and then we'll start off the new year with the Key to Time season 16.
Yeah. So this is partially for my benefit in terms of watching it, partially for your benefit in terms of not having the first story and then we drop off the map for 3 weeks, which I think would be awkward. Also, personal reasons, my sister's getting married in 2 weeks, so I don't have a whole lot of free time, if I'm being perfectly honest. So next week, like I said, we're going to do a random rambling. We're going to talk a bit about the last couple of years of the podcast. We might talk a little bit about Jodie's run. Maybe ask each other some burning questions we've had, now that we've gotten to this point. Who's your favorite doctor? Who's your favorite companion? Things like that. Have our opinions changed? And, we'll probably put a message out on Twitter even before this goes out. So if people have questions that they were wanting to ask, that we will answer them in that one.
Absolutely.
But for now, we need to talk about one Leela, as played by Louise Jemison, who had her final story last week with us. So the way this goes is we talk strengths and weaknesses, or weaknesses and strengths. Sometimes we do them the other around.
We like to end on positivity. So
weaknesses and strengths, and then worst episodes and best episodes. Where usually we have a 3-2-1. I will give a slight spoiler for the next few minutes. I do have an honourable mention in my best episodes.
As do I.
But we start off with our strengths and weaknesses of our character. So I'm assuming, I can't remember, I could check, but I could be bothered. I'm assuming I did Sarah Jane first. So why don't you take the lead with Leela?
Okay. So, weaknesses for one Leela. I think the biggest weakness throughout the entire run of her character is that she doesn't stand up enough for herself to the Doctor, primarily. She stands up for herself against the supporting characters, the villains, not a problem there. But when your supposed friend is constantly fucking, mocking you or belittling you, she's well capable of standing up to him. She should have just been doing it more. Because she kind of sits back and takes it. It's not, and she thinks it's because, he knows best, and it's you know how much of a fucking scatterbrain he is. You've seen it repeatedly. And K9 also supports that theory. So, like, just tell him to, you know what? Fuck off. Um, and it's like, again, whatever else you want to say about, like, oh, she's a bit naive, or, well, she should be grateful to him because, he's showing her the wonders of the universe and explaining it all to her. It's like, that argument can only go so far, You can open someone's eyes to all these wonders, but you don't have to be a prick about the fact that they've never seen it before or noticed it before,
Yeah.
Like, it'd be like Aladdin kind of going, I can show you the world, you ignorant fucking bitch.
It's like the robot chicken version of Aladdin.
Yeah. See that down there? That's a working class person. Fuck's sake. Realistically speaking, that is her biggest weakness as a character. Because everything else is part of her character, and it's actually not a weakness. Like, oh, she's not technologically proficient to the same degree as, say, Sarah Jane or Joe or even Harry, who aren't scientists or teachers or anything like that by default. They learned to do this stuff, and Leela is getting there. Like, but I think she's nearly ahead of Jamie in terms of like the level of stuff that she's learned to do within the confines of the TARDIS, or even in general and like Jamie was like his, that particular version's best friend. So yeah, it's just like, I think that for me is, I want to say, her only weakness that I consider to be like a weakness in insofar as like, like, oh, Christ, I'm just repeating myself. No, I think that is her only weakness.
Yeah.
Is that she does not stand up enough for herself.
I had 3.
Okay, clearly I was missing something.
Well, no, one of which is kind of broad and not really a weakness of Leela as such. Get out of my notes. Fuck off. Get out. I can see you scrolling up. Get out.
I am just trying. Like, I'm out of it. I'm just trying to see where we are in the fucking script. That's all.
We're into the discussion part of the script. Fuck off. Get out.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, so like, I agree with you that she needs to stand up for herself. I think her biggest weakness is how she is perceived by and presented to others. I completely agree with you. She needs to advocate better for herself. Not let people, i.e. the Doctor, say she's a savage and allow other people to make assumptions based on that descriptor. Because that's her biggest problem. Is the fact that like the Doctor says, oh, she's a savage, oh, she's subpar intelligence or whatever, and she never corrects him. And, you said like she stands up for herself, particularly physically she stands up for herself, but she's not fucking stupid. And she doesn't have subpar intelligence. So for me, I thought that was a big problem. It's basically reiterating what you said. What I think her bigger problem is, though, in terms of when we were watching it, and this came up a lot, Leela's biggest weakness is the poor fucking writing around her character. Seriously, is that Leela has to put up with probably the worst, most inconsistent writing we've seen for a character. Like, Liz was a bit inconsistent, Liz Shaw. But at least the core was still there. But half of Leela's stories are like, what the fuck is this? There's like vague threads that make sense, and then there's a load of random nonsense and weaknesses that are implied that aren't actually explored. Like, you gave the example of her like holding onto his scarf and sucking her thumb, or whatever the fuck it was, in
chewing the scarf
in Invisible Enemy. Or there was another one later on where she sort of freaked out about, something being in the TARDIS and she couldn't attack it, she couldn't do it. It's like, what the hell? And then it never gets mentioned again. I think more so than anyone, particularly because she has such a short run. She doesn't have that many stories all in. She's what, 8, 9?
9.
And the writing was kind of 50-50 for her, which isn't good. 50-50 writing is not good. And it was 50-50 with like 50% freaking amazing and 50% what the fuck was that? Do you know? As opposed to 50% really good and 50% okay good. No, like, there was a number of things that you and I were like, what the hell even was that.
Mm.
You know, whatever. The last weakness I have for her, and this is just me purely saying it out of spite, she falls in love too quickly. I fucking hate her departure. I may talk about it more later.
That's probably the quickest fall in love thing we've fucking seen in the they fell in love, so they left fucking thing.
Yeah, I didn't like it with anyone else either. I didn't like it. I think the only person I didn't mind it with so much was
Vicky.
Yeah, 'cause that was her choice. Do you know, in the sense that like she spent time with him, and then like I didn't like that we didn't get a goodbye scene with Vicky, which was annoying.
Yeah, granted as well, like she was a prisoner. So.
Yeah, but actually, do you know what I think the one person who I didn't mind it with was actually Susan. The only issue I had with Susan was that it wasn't her choice, but it's clearly what she wanted. Do you know, and that developed over time. But yeah, I think I agree with you though. All in though, I think in terms of Leela, the character, not Leela, the experience. The biggest weakness is not advocating better for herself.
No. Just the way you wrote about like her weakness being poor writing, it makes it sound like she should have fucking done a She-Hulk on it and just like punched through
really
the screen.
But like, I know you created the robot dog, but what the fuck are you doing? Okay, so why don't you tell me what you think her strengths are?
Ratio, so a bit easier to talk about this. So, you know, we'll go with what we see on the table first of all. Is she's a hunter, you know, and not only that, but she's probably one of the best hunters in the entire fucking tribe. And she brings all the skills you'd associate with it. Like, you know, she's brave, she's cunning, she has really good instinct, which is ridiculed at times and then defended at others.
Yeah.
Again, I think it depends on whether Bob and Dave are writing the fucking script or not. But so that's what we got on delivery, you know, and we made a point of saying that she probably was. I think we talked about like maybe the exception of Sarah Jane with Time Warrior. She's the only companion that's like fully there on delivery, you know. So that was perfectly. It was inherent. That's everything that's there. So that's great. Now we talk about the learning curve. We talk about we like seeing characters develop, and fucking boy did she! Like she learns quickly. She utilizes her newfound knowledge in the subsequent adventures. Like it's Horrifying Rock where she says, "Oh, the doctor has taught me about science, and I believe it's better to believe in science." You know, I think it's better to believe in science, and like we even see her. I like that we actually get to see her learn. You know, the fucking, you know, how to explain transdimensional engineering. That's silly. I like watching the learning process for Leela. You know, because again, it kind of reminds me of Katarina. Because like at least, you know, like Katarina was learning, and then Stephen got the fucking hump about that. A woman learning.
Katarina just wasn't given a chance, which I think is unfortunate, because I think Leela kind of shows what you can do with a character like that.
Yes, and it's why I'm not overly enthused about the newest companion announcement.
I did not pay attention to it whatsoever, because I never knew.
Oh, all right, cool, fair enough. Yeah, it's like, for me personally, I'm not excited about it. You know, I can't wait to see the person in the role. I can't wait to see the character, but just I'm not excited about it. If that makes sense. But back to Leela, I love how her knowledge, the stuff that she learns, drives the plot for the story that she's in, and she makes the solo part of the story where she's in great to watch. Like, again, we've repeatedly said a good Doctor Who story has both the Doctor and the companions' stories within it being interesting. And you're like, oh, I want to get back to that one. Oh, I want to get back to that one. I want to get back to that. As opposed to, Christ, when will we ever get back to, you know, the Doctor? you know. So like I think she had like those were amazing strengths to have in a character that we were lucky that she was so fully developed from the start, and, I put that down to Chris Boucher,
Mm.
because he just like had written this amazing character, and like fucking Terrence and Bob
Mm.
Holmes, they carried that character and they ran with it and they added more great dimensions to it. So like they're the kind of ones that help with the learning curve and like expanding Leela beyond what we'd already seen with Chris,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, they do.
And again, that's half the equation, because the other fucking half the equation is Louise,
Mm.
who fucking did a great performance with everything she was given.
110%. 110%. For me, I had 3 strengths again. Episode of 3s this week.
Except for the honorable mention, apparently.
I mean, her survival instinct has got to be her main strength. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It is an almost supernatural awareness of her surroundings, which I love that they never bother to explain it. They sort of half-ass explain it once or twice, but we never get a proper explanation. It just is what it is. And what I love most, like, not only does she have great instincts, was the fact that she trusts in them. She never second guesses herself. Even after other people try to fob her off, like you said, it's a 50-50 split on whether people respect her instincts or don't. She trusts her instincts and she goes for it, which is fucking brilliant. Particularly, like, I mean, we talked about how Liz Shaw was kind of a bit women's libby and then not really. Jo really wasn't, and then Sarah Jane really was women's lib. So if you're looking at classic companions for young people to look up to, young girls in particular, but young boys as well, Leela's great in terms of be yourself and trust your instincts.
Absolutely.
She's a great role model from that perspective. I think it's easy to get lost in the outfit and not pay attention to the person, which, I'll be honest, was my concern when I first started watching it. Was she just going to be something for the dads, or was it going to be something more, or whatever? But I think just watching Leela and how confident she is in herself, with the exception of standing up to the doctor about his comments, that's the one area where she's not great. She is a role model, I think, for young kids to be yourself and don't let other people try and make you something else. If you have an interest, follow it. If you find the science track a bit interesting, cool, listen to it. Doesn't mean you have to ignore everything you learned before. Just learning something new is another feather in your cap. So that, I think, is brilliant. The other two is her constant just getting stuck in. Again, you said this. We like companions who can drive the plot. And Leela, even when the story doesn't really allow her to drive the plot as much as maybe you and I would like, there's a couple of stories where we're like, she's just kind of there. But even when she's just kind of there, she's still doing something. She's never just there just for decoration. She's never there just doing something in the background. It's always action and active and finding something she can do. She's always doing something, even if her something isn't driving the plot in the sense of a necessary story beat. In universe, she's doing something. Yeah, she might not be driving the plot, she might not have uncovered something new, but she was doing something. She was helping people, or she was rallying people, or she was doing research, or she was, hunting people, or whatever. She was doing something constantly, which is great. And the last one is actually a skill or a strength I don't think she realizes she has, which is her leadership skills. Like, we talked about this in the last episode. For someone who ran away from home because she didn't want to be in a leadership position, she really is a fantastic leader. Time and again, we see her rallying people to her cause, particularly when those causes are not easy to rally to. She's a natural leader, and I think that was why, like when we talked about it last week, I think it's why the falling in love part being the reason for her departure pissed me off so much. because we had plenty of other departures that they could have given her that would have worked just as well as a sort of, we need to get rid of fucking Louise, but would have been better for the character and would have better served the character. Like we said, maybe she stays and leads the people outside the Citadel. Maybe she stays and acts as the head guard for any one of the fucking people left over. Or whatever, but she didn't get the departure that she deserved. And not to rag on someone who has nothing to do with this, but Stephen got the departure that Leela deserved.
Yeah, I agree.
Joe, we talked at the time that we didn't think that departure really worked for Stephen. No offense to Peter Purvis, there's nothing against Peter, but like, it's the character of Stephen, the departure didn't really make sense. That departure would have made perfect sense for Leela.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it, which sucks, because she's a natural leader. And they didn't recognise it, which ticks me off.
No, it's true, like, and it's like you made two very good points there as well about, you were worried about the outfit. And I remember commenting at the time that the sexual nature of Leela's appearance is the least notable thing about her in her first appearance. To me, anyway, it's just like, and repeatedly, like, whenever she's wearing like her leathers, again, it's just like, I don't fucking notice it.
No. I do prefer the original leathers, though.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The replacement Pocahontas leathers were a bit shit.
And the other thing that you talked about there was the instincts, and again, we talked about it on the Sunmakers, the missed opportunity for like that momentary doubt that she had, that K9 explained. There was a great missed opportunity there for some real good fun with that. But like, just overall, she's definitely one of the strongest companions from the classic era, in my opinion.
I would agree. And like I said, maybe next week we might have a bit of a talk on our companion rankings as they are so far. I know I mentioned a bit of mine last week. It might be worth it to explore it a bit more next week when we have a bit of time.
Yeah.
So, on to the episodes. So, generally speaking, we do a 3-2-1 of best worst to worst worst. And worst best to best best.
Yes. Yeah.
So, because we're ending on a high, we're going to do least worst to worst worst first. So, Paddy, 3-2-1, least worst, middle worst, and worst worst.
All right. So, my least worst, in my opinion, is Underworld.
Okay.
Invasion of Time. And worst worst is The Invisible Enemy.
Okay. We have two of those in common.
Okay.
My least worst is Image of the Fendal. My middle worst is Underworld. And my worst is Invasion of Time. I will be honest, Image of the Fendal and Invisible Enemy were flippy floppy. But yeah, I went with those three because I think we can talk about Invisible Enemy when we get to it for you, but I think the parts of that bothered you, bothered you significantly more than they bothered me at the time.
Yeah.
They did bother me, but they didn't bother me as much. So I think that might be where the difference lies. But so what did you say was in your three spot?
Underworld.
Okay, so you don't have Image of the Fendal in your list at all.
I do not.
So should I go first with Image of the Fendal, then we both do Underworld, then we do Invasion, and then we do...
Actually, just before we start, speaking of Underworld, so I compared the CSO on Underworld to the television show Nightmare. And on Twitter, myself and Paul were talking about Nightmare, and actually there's a Twitter account devoted to Nightmare, and they actually liked the conversation that we were having. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Image of the Fendal.
Go.
Why is it in the 3 spot in worst episodes? For me, it's because it was so meh. Like, Leela isn't a meh person. But Image of the Fendal was a meh Leela story. Yeah, she has a moment where she stands up for herself with the Doctor, which is fantastic. But she doesn't contribute anything, really, to that story. And I don't like her new twist, to be perfectly honest.
I was actually going to joke. I was like, it's because of the fucking outfit, isn't it?
It was partially because of the outfit. The outfit was shit. But no, I think like with Image of the Fendal, it's just what did she do? Not a whole lot. You know, like Leela's action, Leela's leadership, Leela's instinct. Like I said, yeah, she stands up for herself with the Doctor once, but that's really it. You know, she didn't contribute anywhere near as much as she has in other stories. And I was just like, when I'm describing a Leela story as meh, I'm like, that, no. No, Leela's more than a meh. So that, for me, was why Image of the Fandal made the list and Invisible Enemy didn't. Because there was bits in Invisible Enemy I did not like. But there were significant bits in Invisible Enemy that I did like.
Mm.
And it wasn't meh. Image was meh.
Mm.
So yeah.
Alright.
Rebuttal. Feedback.
No, like there's no real rebuttal, but I think what's really been getting on my fucking goat about Leela is that it's the treatment of her within the shows, and I think that's where the majority of my picks are coming from. Is her treatment within the shows, within those stories, because while in terms of her progressing the story and her action in it, they're not meh. But her treatment as a character, it fucking boils my blood, and I don't get that in the Image of the Fendal.
I can see that
because it's not just the Doctor that she stands up to; it's fucking Ted Moss, the fucking druid cultic prick, and it's Jason or James or the Les Dennis looking fucker, who like tries to basically, well, it's all you country bumpkins' fault, and she's like, would you just shut the fuck up, you nearly got us killed inside. So like it's not just the Doctor, it's actually just she just takes a stand against everyone, and I liked her connection point with the grandmother. So while yes, it's not like, well, the story isn't great anyway, it's just a meh story as we kind of ranked it. I didn't have the same issues that you had with Leela's portrayal in it.
I think we'll circle back around to this topic, I think, when we get to Invisible Enemy. Because I think for me with this, like, would I watch this back as a Leela story? No. I wouldn't. Image or Invisible Enemy, I might skim it.
That's the thing, like, I'd skim Invisible Enemy.
Yeah. But I think that for me was that, like, there's nothing drawing me back to Image of the Fendal for Leela. Like,
right.
Sometimes I watch things where I just skim through to my favorite parts. That's how I rewatch things. I would just skip Image completely. If I was doing a Leela rewatch, I'd just skip it. In which case, that needs to be remarked upon in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, no, that is fair.
Cool. So
like, if there's not drawing you back to this, like, if Leela is the only reason to draw you back to a story, and Leela ain't fucking putting out the goods, no. Yeah, that's completely there. Yeah.
So that was my number 3. Your number 3 was Underworld. So you give your thoughts, I'll give my thoughts.
Okay. So my main thoughts on Underworld are, okay, yes, she has her action moments with the shield and stuff like that, but there's this continual fucking punching down of Leela, it's like like when she gets pacified, and like, the Doctor's like thinks it's fucking hilarious, and then we talked about she's justified in her emotional state then.
Yeah. It's just badly written.
It comes across as a child's tantrum, as opposed to, you took away my fucking free will, you won't take it again. And I commented on the fact as well, like, that she just seemed a bit more frantic and unsure
Mm.
than we'd seen her before. But again, it's the two lads just can't fucking write for her.
Yeah.
And like going back, it's like they really can't. When you put the focus on, or when they're required to put a large amount of focus on the female companion, it's almost like they're going like, oh well, how do you write a woman?
Mm.
Because if we think about the stories that we actually liked by them, there was the Sontaran experiment,
Mm-hmm.
the Three Doctors, and there was one other. Can't remember for the life of me.
Did we like Claws of Access?
No, not particularly.
No, my mum didn't either.
Yeah, that was great. But if we're talking about like, okay, the Three Doctors, that's a very large ensemble thing. Like, you know, because you've got John, you've got the Brig, you've got Benton, you've got Joe's a very small part of it.
You got Three Doctors.
Yeah, you got Three Doctors. Then Sontaran it's very small. It's Harry's first solo adventure. Sarah Jane is tied up for most of it, and we're also seeing another level of the Sontaran sadism. You know, and there was a fucking other one. I can't remember. I don't know what it was.
Did they do Hand of Fear?
They did. Sorry, they did.
Yeah.
But again,
they didn't do her departure scene, so we were like, thank God.
They didn't do her departure scene, and also Sarah Jane is hypnotized for a large majority of it. So there's no Sarah Jane under her own free will for a lot of the portion of it there.
Although you could kind of look at it that way and sort of look at, like, because we look at Sarah Jane's behaviour in Hand of Fear as the culmination of her travelling with the Doctor, that she went from being the somewhat uptight feminist, whatever, to being more childlike and childish, and we see that as a progression across it. But like, if you only watched Hand of Fear, if you watched her first episode or last episode, you'd be like, what the why is she acting like a big giant child?
It's actually interesting because someone commented on how they didn't like the Hand of Fear departure. You know, they didn't like why she leaves in an overalls after she started off in a suit. And I responded like, you know, that we thought it was a very interesting actual character study about how adventuring the TARDIS can affect your sense of reality a small bit.
I mean, that's still the way I see it, because we see that, you know, progressively throughout the stories. But I mean, she is very childish in Hand of Fear. No, I love it. I think it's brilliant. But would that have been in our character Bible? Maybe not.
No.
Do they just write women as being quite childish? Maybe they do.
Yeah, well, we're going to fucking talk about it more, I think. But, like, Underworld was... Like, we talked about, like, Underworld had so much potential and they just fucking face planted on it. Yeah. And a part of that is the treatment of Leela in it.
Yeah. Like, for me, like, Underworld took my 2 spot, because Underworld really went into, would I rewatch it for Leela? And now I'm really thinking about, like, the way she's being treated, because I agree with you. She's treated like crap the whole way through the story. And particularly, like, and I told you, like, you and I had different reactions to her response to being pacified. I thought it was a bit OTT, but completely understandable. And I probably would feel the same way if it happened to me. I think you read it as like super OTT, and it sort of took you out of it. It didn't quite take me out of it to quite the same way that it did you, but it did bother me. And like I said at the time, that like, yeah, we see her fighting as the story goes on, but she never got her redemption. Do you know? It was like, oh, well, she's aggressive and we have to pacify her and whatever. Her primitiveness never gets redeemed. You know, we never get like the real show of that's what makes her a badass, you stupid prick. Do you know, like, we don't really see Leela standing up for the Trogs when she was in the exact same position they were in before. Do you know?
Yeah.
And And we don't see that like Leela's primitiveness is like her instincts are worth more than all of their cleverness combined. And for me in Underworld, really, like that was really the thing of like they did her dirty in that. Do you know? I don't know why. We'll probably talk about it in a second when you talk about you know this, but I don't know why Underworld bothered me more. I think it's because of the correlation between the Trogs and the 17.
Mm.
That like here's your story to show her development from where she started to now, and they just shit the bed.
But as well, but the thing is, you point out as well that in Invisible Enemy, there is laudable moments for Leela as a
Mm.
character. There's no real laudable
No,
moments for her here.
no, she's just there. And yeah, she fights a bit, but that's not celebrated. She doesn't she doesn't do the sword of the stone moment. She doesn't do anything really. And like I said, the Doctor and Tom have that great moment where they're getting the Trogs on board the ship. We don't see her standing up for people like which she would. Do you know? You totally get that sense of. I mean, I was going to call it like we don't have any real season like first season Leela stories in here. First 4 story Leela and back 5 story Leela treated differently and reacts differently. That's why for me, like Image of the Fendal was a meh story. It's a meh for Leela. I wouldn't rewatch it. Underworld just pisses me off to watch it, and I wouldn't watch it again. Again, if I was doing a Leela binge, I wouldn't rewatch Underworld because the whole pacifying a person thing and the Doctor
Mm.
being okay with it, fuck to the no. Just mm-mm, mm-mm, not happening. Not
Yeah.
happening at all.
Although, like in the back five there is the halftime split of the Sunmakers.
Which is alright.
Yeah.
That's a good bit.
Yeah.
Sunmakers I would binge, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'd include some Sunmakers in a binge. Um, then you have Invasion of Time next, right?
I do as my number two.
Yes, and I have Invasion of Time as my number 1. So why don't you go first with your number
Mm.
2?
All right. So we're now coming into an equation where there are some really positive things for Leela in this story.
Mm.
As we talked about, her leadership, her relationship, whichever way you want to look into it, with Rodan.
I know what way I look
Yep.
at it.
Lower those eyebrows. Um, and it just like her interactions with the native contingent of Gallifrey, and you said like her just like the moments that she has like fighting the Santarans, they're really good.
Mm.
But Jesus Christ, like it just gets on my fucking nerves over the whole like bipolarish relationship with Leela. It's like she's an amazing hunter, like she can survive in the wild, but they tear her mind to pieces. Like she's some almighty monster weakling. And it is fucking frustrating because again we talked about like in the TARDIS they can't read your thoughts. Explain it to her and then have her like hide in the TARDIS until they're distracted and then have her fucking sneak out, like I don't know, wearing a big tinfoil hat, something just, and then it's the oh your arm is hurt. I think I'm falling in love with you. Like versus the person that you've got a really good rapport with, plus seems to be carrying Smarties for days. So like you really you're back to losing horse on that one. I think it's just a fucking dud departure. On top of the whole, I'll miss you, Doctor, and just like sort of okay, I'll let you know how I actually feel once I close this door.
Yeah, like okay. I agree with everything you just said. Why did I put it as my worst? Worst. I think it's because it's a similar reason to why with Jo, her departure story was, if I remember correctly, my worst for Jo as well.
Yeah, I believe so. Or was it Terror of the Autons?
It was either her first or her last. Was one. I think it was. Can't remember.
I will check as
You
you
can
are
check while I
making
ramble
your.
on. But it's her final story. Right? They knew it would be her final story, and they have her on Gallifrey. Right? The hoity-toity, fucking full of themselves, fucking Time Lords or whatever. What better opportunity were they going to get to showcase how amazing Leela is, and how what makes Leela Leela is what makes her fucking badass. And what did they do? From the very fucking first scene, she's infantilized. She's treated like she is the worst thing that could possibly happen to this planet, is Leela being there. You know, so you have K9 hiding things from her. You have the Doctor rigging the TARDIS. Never mind, she can function. She can use a lot of parts of the TARDIS. I don't know if Jamie ever learned how to open the fucking door, but like she knows how bits of the TARDIS work. So clearly she's intelligent enough to learn science and technology. And from the minute the Doctor walks in, K9 or Leela tell K9 to tell you to shut up. We're not telling you any. The dog fucking knew. The dog was a central part of the plan, and Leela wasn't told. To your point, they can't hear your thoughts in the TARDIS. Just fucking leave her in there, then have her fucking keep an eye on the cameras and doing fucking reconnaissance for you from inside the TARDIS.
Let her go for a swim. Try and break the Olympic breaststroke record.
There's plenty she could have been doing. Also, if you can make a fucking tinfoil hat for What's-His-Face, make one for her as well. Like, there's so many things in that first few scenes that were done badly. And then the fact the Doctor's like, she can't even be in the Citadel. She needs to go. She can't be here. Her mind is too weak. They'd rip through her like paper. I guarantee you they fucking wouldn't. I guarantee, we never actually see them try. We never see someone try to read Leela's mind. And it's like, at least give her an attempt. Give her a fucking attempt at it. Do you know? But she doesn't know what's happening. You got rid of her because she has so much fucking faith in you, and then you're like, oh, she'll be fine outside. She'll be grand. And then once she finally does rally everyone together, she gets no fucking kudos for it. I was like, yeah, Leela, thanks. Whatever. And then she does nothing. Like, they do the rally, save the day for 5 seconds. Then what does she contribute in the last 2 episodes?
A knife to the probic vent.
A knife to the probic vent. Awesome. Then she falls in love with some guy and stays behind.
Captain Charismaless.
Yeah, I'm now convinced in my head that he's just a beard for the other two because, like, come on. But like, her departure was shit. She deserves such a better. They knew for ages she was fucking leaving, and they couldn't write a better departure for her. And I still, like, I told you this at the time. The Doctor refers to K9 as his second best friend. Given the departure we got in the story, do you think he meant Leela was his first best friend?
Oh God, no.
No. And that's shit, because she deserved so much fucking more. She deserved to be queen of a fucking planet, or the head guard. She deserved to be lauded for her leadership, for her instincts, for her, you know, her battle prowess and whatever. No, I'm staying here because he hurt his arm and apparently I have a thing for simps. I don't fucking know what the fuck, like, I don't get it. Like, it pissed me off so much. And for me, like, if you have a departure story that is not good, it's always going to be high on my worst episodes. Because, like, departures need to be good.
Speaking of, so your worst for Joe, Green Death was your second worst. Your worst was Terror of the Autons. Okay. My third worst for Joe was Terror of the Autons, and my worst was Green Death. Yeah. Also, the whole, you know, their mental powers thing, it reminds me of like this really redundant quote from the Venture Brothers. They're talking about like this one character. He's like, be careful, his hands are strong enough to crush a boulder, yet delicate enough to crush a butterfly. It's like, It's the same thing. Why you making this distinction? So it's like they're too powerful. They'd rip through your brain just as easily as they'd rip through hers just as easily as they'd rip through yours. Like, don't make the distinction that, like, oh, out in the wilds she's perfectly fine. It's like, if they're as all powerfully telepathic as you say they are, then surely they can think beyond like the range of the fucking citadel.
Yeah, they could detect
So
from wherever the fuck they were.
yeah, yeah, that's like they could detect from a fucking ship, however many thousand kilometers away, that you were up to fucking no good. So, like, I don't get the distinction that you're trying to make here. It makes no sense.
Also, I mean, if they wanted to do it and still have her primitiveness, which I fucking hate, as a thing, go the other way with it. Leela knows everything. Leela is the linchpin to the plan. But her mind is so inferior, they won't take any notice of her. Go the other way with it. Double down on it in the other fucking direction. That her mind doesn't give out big giant fucking waves because she's not fucking telepathic like Gallifreyans are. So she can know everything. It's not that they can't read her mind, it's that they would never read her mind. Why would they? She's just a primitive.
Yeah, use their prejudice against them.
Yeah. If you wanted to do it that way, it's a better way of doing it, which still celebrates Leela. Why is it I can write that up and they could?
I don't know. I think that might be a question that we're going to ask a couple of more times coming up.
But yeah, so that for me was my 3, 2, 1. So Image of the Fendal, because it was completely meh and I have no desire to go back and watch it, and I wouldn't even rewatch it for Leela. Underworld, because it just pissed me off, the whole pacifying her thing. And Invasion of Time, because the way she was so infantilized, and like that was her departure story, was her being treated like shit. Again, I have no desire to go back and rewatch it, other than maybe watch the scenes with her and Rodan. But even then,
that's like 5 minutes of footage.
Yeah, and I don't know if I bother going to the effort because I know it doesn't go anywhere.
So that leaves me with my number one, which is The Invisible Enemy. And I could sum it up easily in the statement that I made at the time. I was like, she goes, the reason that it's not affecting her is because she's too fucking stupid. That really fucking pisses me off. It just, like, again, we had 4 stories, 3 of which we're probably going to discuss. Or possibly 4, depending on which way our teams would line up. We had like 4 stories ahead of her, which is like this, fucking Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, fucking Xena, whatever you want to put there, all that, and like you have this fucking board to work off of, and it's like Raquel Welch from fucking 1 million years BC. And like, it's just, I don't know what the fuck the guys were doing, like, and that's the thing that, but it kind of bothers me in relation to, I think that's probably been the biggest issue we've ever had with Classic Who, is that it's the huge cycle and overturn of writers handling the same characters. And like, I know, like, like you have lots of shows like which is like they have multiple writers, but they either have like the same block of directors, or fucking the same, like, the creators are also the writers for the large quantity of it. Like, so they have this Bible that they're going off of, versus what's your interpretation of this character.
Yeah, I think because like obviously, like, I mean, other shows are made at the same time, like Star Trek the original series, for example, lots of writers, lots of directors, but they had a show Bible, and like here, I think the role of the producer and the script editor should be to ensure consistency in character development and growth. And I think after Bob left, or when Bob was leaving, they just didn't care. Like, Leela, very consistent for the first 4 stories. And then Bob's gone and it kind of goes off the rails. I was like, what the hell? Like, new producer came in, oh, we love Leela, we want Leela to stay, gave her fuck all to work with. And it's like, that to me is not necessarily a writing room failure, because the script editing is their job. I mean, also a lot of these stories are written without knowing who the companion is going to be. They're written months in advance, or they're recycled, or they're pulled forward, or they're pulled backwards, or whatever. But I think there's something we're seeing more so with Leela than we've probably seen with anyone else, which is, where's the oversight? Because Bob and Dave got to do it twice. They got it wrong the first time,
and they doubled down.
And they doubled down on the same fucking thing as well. The second time, I was like, where was the oversight to stop that from happening? Where's the oversight being like, hey lads, it's been a couple of stories since you said this, so she's grown and evolved and moved on. So, grown, evolved, move on.
Well, but the other thing then is, like, when they shrink down, they go on their fantastic voyage. Again, you pointed out at the time, and it really did kind of just boggle my fucking mind, is that your hunter ability will be able to help track it down. You're constantly fucking leading her. So, like, how is her hunter's ability able to do anything? And, like, again, as like my the scarf, chewing the scarf, was like, okay, we've never seen anything like that. Yes, she is spooked by the big scary presence, but at the same time she faced Zoannon, so didn't seem to have an issue there. Why? And at the end of the day, why is it the only person that appreciates her capabilities and her intelligence for what they are is a robot dog?
I think that's why I didn't have it in my 3-2-1. I love her and K9 in the story. And I will gladly go back and rewatch Leela and K9.
But, like, see, this thing that would draw me back to watching the majority of it. But at the same time, while yes, okay, like you, I watch my favorite parts in certain episodes. But at the same time, like, I want to be able to watch the entirety of the episode as well.
I think for me, like, the Leela thing in this, like, I found the chewing the scarf thing fucking weird. And I found the ending and the fact that, like, yeah, they did the whole, oh, she's stupid, so I fucking ignored her, and then they never gave her the payoff. That's annoying, and it's literally Underworld all over again. The difference for me between Underworld and this is that there's bits I like in this. The bits of her with K9, her, just the way she is in general, the way she protects the doctor and, gets him to the hospital and whatever. I love all that. That's all brilliant. And that bit I'd rewatch again without a problem. And I'd get over the scarf biting at the beginning to enjoy the next 3 episodes. Or the next 2 episodes. Do you know what I mean? And then I probably wouldn't watch the end of it. But, like, for the others, I wouldn't go through it again.
I just had a funny realization there, and I think it kind of runs to something Paul said, right? So we've been talking like a fairly good time, a fairly in-depth conversation about Leela, and we're just finishing her weaknesses. In this same time frame, I'm pretty sure we did Ian and Barbara's entire fucking rambling.
Yeah. That's because we were really paranoid and self-conscious at the beginning. Now we don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Also, we're more comfortable talking about it. Sometimes I do sort of find myself going like, oh, if we could go back and talk about those stories again and talk about those characters again. Although we do mention Ian and Barbara on the regular anyway. Ian and Barbara's rambling never ended, let's be honest.
Yeah.
They go on forever.
Well, see, I'll get a chance to possibly explore that now, because I'm pretty sure one of my Christmas presents is the collection Blu-ray box set for season 2. Yay.
One of my presents to myself is the collection box set for season 2. I don't have a significant other to buy me these things. I have to buy them for myself.
Well, to be fair, I went, can you buy me this, please?
As opposed to every other year where you do the same?
Well, no, see, I give people a wish list and say, whatever you want to get from that, feel free. Here's your guidebook. If you want to give me something outside of it, that's perfectly fine. If you're struggling for an idea, here it is. No, I deliberately went, I want this. get me this. So yeah, let's move on to the positive side of things, or let's move to our happy place.
Yeah. So I have 3 and an honorable mention.
I have 3 and an honorable mention.
I have a funny feeling they're the same 4, perhaps just in a different order. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not. So,
right. Okay.
What was your honorable mention?
Robots of Death.
So was mine.
Okay. Okay.
3.
Face of Evil.
So was mine. 2.
Horrifying Rock.
Yeah. Which means
this is the bed sheets, Cards Against Humanity thing all over again, isn't it?
Also, for context, people wonder why Paddy mentioning bed sheets. One was it Christmas?
Yeah, it was Christmas.
Me and Paddy gave each other identical looking packages, which contained identical bed sheets.
Yep. And then another year, we both gave each other identical packages, which turned out to be Cards Against Humanity. Yeah. So that leaves number 1, Talons of Wing Chang. Okay, fair enough.
Cool. So let's talk about our honorable mention first.
Gotcha.
Why robots?
All right. So I would say, in the best possible way, it is the weakest of her good episodes. This isn't like the Liz Shaw, like we had to rank it 4 to 1 because
there was only 4.
We both pretty much. I think we both pretty much felt the same way about Ambassadors of Deputy or 3. We're like, here it's nothing but positives. The only thing though is that Leela is kind of finding her feet on her first adventure here. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But it's definitely a finding your feet. And it's great because she interacts with all the other characters so well. And we get a taste of what her relationship with the Doctor could have been. In the sort of we talked about the weird the time and space version of My Fair Lady. But also the relationship she has with D84. Please don't throw hands at me. No, it's for someone's first off-world adventure, it's definitely one of the strongest ones.
I agree.
I think it's kind of up there with. I know you didn't particularly care for the story, but Jo in Colony in Space, she adapted really well, and she was a good integral driving force behind that. Harry in Ark in Space, so. Yeah, I think that it's definitely one of the. It's up there with that quality,
I'd agree. I'd agree. For me, to be honest, it was kind of a toss-up between Robots and Face for me. I wasn't quite sure which one I wanted to go with.
It was a toss-up between Robots and Horrifying Rock for me.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about why I picked Face in a second, but everything you said about Robots, completely agree. And you got to give a shout out to her reaction to having transcendental dimensions explained to her by saying, "That's silly." You can't yeah. It's the best fucking moment. It's fucking brilliant. In terms of would I go back and watch a story again, which is kind of a benchmark I kind of use in my own head. I would rewatch Robots of Death anyway, but I'd also just watch that particular scene on fucking repeat on YouTube. I would seek out that scene on its own to watch it by itself. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a toss-up for me between that and Face. And Face kind of picked it to the post, I think, just because of the nature of that story, but definitely the worst of a great bunch. Do you know what I mean?
But I think another thing to its credit as well, right? And as we talked about Louise's struggle stepping into the shoes, this is a really solid first foot into replacing a much beloved character.
Yeah, and that's a good call out actually. I mean, Face of Evil could have ended with her being a story-based companion. Wasn't really confirmed until the very end that she was going to stay because Tom wanted to be by himself. So for Louise, robots is really her first companion story, really. Do you know, where she's properly on board as the companion. Because they could have very easily ended Face of Evil with the Doctor going off on his own, which is what Tom would have
Yeah, they could
wanted.
have.
So that's actually a good thing to consider when looking at Robot. And like, you know, we talked about how Louise's performance in Robot was fucking, or Robots rather, was fucking phenomenal. Particularly knowing what we know was happening behind the
Behind
scenes,
the
and the fact
scenes.
that it maybe wasn't the best working environment for her. She wasn't feeling very welcomed, you know. And you know, I talked about like that conversation that she had with Liz Sladen, where it's just like, oh, like how are you finding it? And clearly all happy, and Louise didn't have that experience, at least not at the
Mm.
beginning. You know, so yeah, I think that's something to maybe to keep in mind when looking at robots, is that there is some background stuff going on, and even with all that, she fucking knocked it out of the park. Like I said, it's the worst of a fantastic bunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Cool. So,
So,
face.
yes. So, very similar internal conflict surrounding Face as I had with Time Warrior.
Mm.
Is it fair to put a companion's very first story into their top three stories because of how big we are on character development?
Mm.
You know, on watching the progression. But much like Time Warrior, it's fucking brilliant. It's so, like we talked about before, like she is everything on delivery.
Mm.
And like she's a tough character. She's able to drive the story. She's able to drive the solo sections. We're interested in her solo parts, sometimes more so than what the Doctor is going through. We talked about like her instincts, her cunning. Um, I think the best representation of that is when she's in the hallway and she's holding off the Tesh guards,
Mm.
and how she uses her hunter's instincts to like get a feel for where they are, or trick them into coming out in the open and ambushing them in a small like being able to to ambush people in a fucking small confined series of corridors.
Mm.
It's tough, you know. But she does it, and it makes for some really interesting watching. And you go back to the Doctor's thing because watching the Doctor encounter Zoannan is interesting. More so, I think, because you're trying to figure out what Zoannan
Mm.
is. But you want to go flip back to see, like, oh, how is Leela doing it holding off the guys?
Mm.
You know, kind of reminds me a small bit of Tommy and
The spiders.
the spiders.
Mm.
You know, like outside the door. You know, that type of thing. I want to see how the defender is doing.
Mm.
Um, but everything else though was great. It was just solid, rock solid performance, rock solid writing,
Mm.
just excellent.
Yeah, like for me, because I know we discussed it when we were talking about Sarah Jane, and you're like, oh, I don't know about having like the first story in the best stars. For me, a brilliant introduction is a brilliant introduction, Geo, and that's what we get here. We get the whistle stop tour of everything that is to come with Leela. And what we're going to see in the other two episodes we're going to talk about is what we saw here, but bigger and better and taken to the next level. But as a foundation, it's a fucking dinger. It's a dinger of a foundation story. Like, she's strong and brave. She's intelligent, even if she's not technologically proficient. Like, once it's explained to her what's going on, she's like, okay, I didn't understand a fucking word of what you said, but I get the gist. Cool. What are we doing? No, like, there is nothing, like, at no point is she like, no, it's magic, blah blah blah. If you show her it's not magic, it's this, she's like, oh, okay, noted. Good to know. Um, she, again, her great instincts. She adapts well to change, and also she's a great leader, even when she doesn't want to be. Do you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think what makes Leela so interesting is the fact that, like, and you can kind of say that it's a little bit like, you know, Disney's Pocahontas or whatever you want to call it, right? But the fact that, like, at the end of the story, she realizes there's so much more to learn, and she wants to go out there and learn it. She won't be happy just leading the tribe. She knows there's more out there. Also, the two tribes are fucking thick stupid, and she's like, no, please, please don't leave me here with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's that, and it's the thing about Leela is that like Leela knows her own limits, but she also knows that she can learn to move beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first step. So this is the first step out the door, or the first step in the door, depending on what way you look at it, to get her to where ideally she would have gotten to.
Yeah.
Had things gone a different way. So yeah.
No, I agree completely. And that's not even acknowledging the fact that like she is, if you wanted to go down this route, she is a female warrior in a caste primarily made up of men. Like, and again, you don't care about that particular fucking story trope.
Yeah.
You don't like it's just not written that way, and it's great, and all fucking credit to Chris for the writing he did for Leela.
Yeah,
all credit to him.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's partially the reason why I didn't have Image on my thing, because it was him writing for her again, and I was like, she's in good hands.
Then we have Horror of Fang Rock.
Yes. Horror of Fang Rock. Sorry, no, Horror of Fang Rock is like, it's the first story under the new showrunner. And it had all the promise that we were looking for, like, here's the jokey relationship, here's the jokey way of saying savage, she's in on the joke. There's the banter back and forth, there's the respect for her abilities, there's the standing up for her against fucking bitchy McBitchface. Like, there's it's what it fucking should have been.
Yeah.
It's what this was the first step into that fucking path, and then immediately those two fucking plebs got a hold of it, and they just no, because I think that was written before Horror, so it makes it even worse in the sense of like, it's the showrunner's fault then, because it's like, why didn't you just fucking switch them or something? No, I don't know. This was such a good story with Leela.
Yeah.
Because it's what we were terrified. Like, it seemed to put away all our fears,
Only for them to come back up again.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, it's interesting. I just double checked. Horror is the only Leela story that we gave a 5.
You gave a 5. I gave a 4.5.
Did you? I thought you gave it a 5.
No, because you remember, I was annoyed with.
You didn't give Leela any 5s.
Because I raised the fucking point that in these types of stories, every character that has to get some sort of a connective response from me, and I was like, I don't care about these people being fucking killed off.
Okay, Horror's the only Leela story I gave a 5. I chose it second only to Talon's because of the limited location. There's only so much plot driving you can do in a lighthouse.
Yeah.
To be honest, there's only so much you can do in a very confined location.
Yeah.
The plot just kind of happens.
It's the setting of like a D&D thing on a train. Yeah. You're literally railroading them as to where they're fucking going.
There's only so much that she can do to drive plot. Still though, it is a fucking powerhouse of a story from Leela, and a powerhouse performance from Louise. We get to see more of her danger sense, and here the Doctor isn't discounting it. He reiterates the importance of it. It's important. It should be listened to. She gets stuck in, like, whether she's investigating or fighting or shoveling coal, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. She fucking gets stuck in whatever's needed, no prompting. She just fucking does it, and you're like, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
But to bring the level of conversation down a bit, she's not half bad in the fucking lighthouse keeper garb.
That's true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I have by I like here it says he who says lower your eyebrows fucking 5 minutes ago. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I think like this really, I mean, we thought that like Face was her first story, and we thought, oh, that's fucking corker of an opener. Now we're into her first story of her second season, and this is what we got. Like, you and I were riding high for a reason, like, do you know? And we were expecting that train to keep going.
And again, but we also had the word going, oh, it's Terrence Dicks writing it, and Terrence.
And Terrence, sometimes, like, no offense to Terrence, like, but
yeah,
not great at the old female characters thing,
Yeah,
no. Maybe it's because he had a different character to do the horrible women.
Quite possibly. But he fucking he shut us up anyway.
Though. Fucking fantastic.
Well, phrasing. Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it's what it should have been through to the end.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Like, when you compare this to fucking Invisible Enemy or fucking Invasion of Time, you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is what you had to work with. And she can carry it. Louise can carry it. And they didn't do it. It just, maybe because it was the opener of the season, and you're like, oh, fucking ace, like.
Or even if you want to compare, like, the image of Fendal, I know that we talk about how good Chris is, but the image of Fendal, which is set in a haunted house.
Yeah.
Confined spacing, like, and it's just this is like, I wonder how much haunted or spooky lighthouse media is out there, because I would love to compare this to something else,
Yeah, I think this being a great Leela performance is massively helped by the fact that it's a great story in its own right.
Yeah.
However, that's not necessarily a requirement for a best episode for a companion.
No, it is not.
As is definitely the case from my perspective on our number one. How surprised are you that Talon's made it to the top of my list?
Honestly, not very. I thought, like, it might be a flip between this and horror, but we talked at length about the problematic nature of this story, but we also talked at length about the positives in this problematic story, chiefly being Leela, Lightfoot, and Jago, as well as the fucking performance by guy whose name I can't remember, John
Bennett.
John Bennett, in the complete fucking wrong role. But we've had that discussion. Okay. Here though, this is a 6-parter with multiple character, companion, and doctor separation, multiple incidents of it. And what happens? She follows the fucking kidnapper, pretends to be one of his victims, ambushes him, fucking goes back to reveal the source of the lair, jumps through a window while being threatened by a ventriloquist puppet with a pig brain. Great action sequence. I like it.
Uses a gun you've never this one before in her life.
Absolutely. Manages to make a driver into a javelin. Fucking can't beat it. But on top of all these fantastic, here she is in the action, here she is driving the plot, here she is whatever, her relationship with Lightfoot is amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. And she didn't have as much time with Jago, which is a crime, but the bits we got were great. So, and as much as you have the doctor like trying to explore like the sewer system and try and find all this kind of stuff, Leela's solo adventure was amazing.
Yeah.
It was it was proper Victorian pulp style adventuring. And the great cliffhanger of her being chased by the giant rat.
Mm.
And that sequence in the giant rat gets an awful lot of fucking flack. Personally, I thought they worked it really well.
Mm.
I thought that they, the lighting and everything added to it. It was really good. And that sequence of her being dragged back and Louise just fucking sold the shit out of it. It was amazing. So, yes, we've talked before about bad stories, but we've also highlighted fantastic performances in bad stories, and here's a key example of it.
Yeah, like I said, for people listening to this who listen to our discussion of talents, it might come across as controversial that I have talents as being my favorite because, like we said, I nearly turned it off, because the racism was so fucking ridiculous, and I was like, "What the hell am I watching?" and whatever. I wasn't watching a Doctor Who story. I was watching a Leela story, and Leela's story is what kept me going through that because she was fucking phenomenal. She was also the least fucking racist out of everybody.
Yes, there is that.
But like, we talk about driving plot. There's driving plot and there's fucking chasing after it and hopping into the fucking back and getting caught up in it, and everything she does throughout the entire story is just phenomenal. It's it's Sherlock Holmes, it's whatever, but it's not like her being, Sherlock Holmes' sidekick or something. It's no, like he may be the one wearing the deerstalker. She's the one doing the sleuthing though. She's the one figuring shit out. She's the one jumping in and whatever. I mean, she knows nothing of London. She's never fucking been to this place in her fucking life. But she takes off after Chang and conducts her own experiment without a second thought. It's like, no, that's the bad guy. I'm gonna fucking chase him. The fact that she swaps places with one of the women is fantastic, and I love her versus Magnus Greel at the end of it when he has her in the machine, and she's like, "I'm gonna come back and fucking haunt you forever, you piece of shit." And it's just like, it's so good. It's so good.
Defiance.
It is like, I think of all of the top companion performances we've had, all the companions we've had who've talked about their best performances, this is one of the best performances, I think.
Oh yeah, hugely, because like there's so many layers to Leela's performance here. Like, okay, we have the action side of things, which we've grown used to from Leela's perspective, from Leela's point of view, because that's essentially what she is. There is the fun, quirky character moments, like taking up the entire joint of beef on the carving knife, and like Jago following suit.
Lightfoot.
But there's one moment, Lightfoot. Sorry, yeah, Lightfoot. But there's one moment in it, and it's just, I think it completes like that little nice trifecta for female characters. For me personally, is just the moment of femininity when she comes in the opera dress and she's like, "How does it look?" And like the two lads just kind of smile at her, and like she just smiles then because like they think she looks pretty, and like it kind of like, it's a lot of things. It's like remember Firefly, the episode Shindig, where Kaylee gets like the pretty dress, Kaylee like who's like a rough and tumble ship's engineer, and like you love Kaylee for that, but then you get to see Kaylee just fucking being a girl, that type of thing, and like it's whatever you want to, maybe people have different attitudes about that. I think it's kind of sweet, and I like it.
Yeah, when the character likes it, then it's done really well. So like in the Kaylee situation, she wanted to dress up and feel brilliant, and when that's what the character wants, it's great. I love like we had talked about the My Fair Lady thing. I think the My Fair Lady thing worked a lot better with Leela and Lightfoot than it did with Leela and the Doctor. I also think it worked better with Leela and K9 than it did with Leela and the Doctor, to be honest.
With the Doctor and Leela, it's more of a Robinson Crusoe Friday type scenario, I think.
But like, we're sort of just repeating ourselves here, but I think in whatever order you watch them, or however if you have a chance to watch Talons, Horror, Face, or Robots, fucking do it. Any one of the four of them is going to be a great experience, particularly Talons, Horror, and Face. But Robots isn't to be shirked on either.
Yeah, no.
Any one of those four, if you can watch it on BritBox or you can get access to the DVD or whatever, fucking watch it. And if you're one of those people who, like me, and again, I'm kicking myself that I could have met Louise Jameson and I didn't. Anyway, if you're one of those people who looked at Leela and her costume and was like, oh, this is just fucking, 70s fucking cheese, it's gonna be really bad, it's gonna be like this fucking, Pocahontas, something for the dads fucking tripe. Dude, you're so wrong. You are so wrong. It is so much more than that. And even if you only watch those 4 and don't bother with the rest of it, watch those 4, then Leela stays in Gallifrey with you one. That's all you need to know. With the dog. She gets the dog along the way. But yeah. No, I think overall, I was very happily surprised with Leela. I don't know what I was expecting going in. I didn't really know anything about her beyond the fact that I knew she was often referred to as the sort of something for the dads and whatever, which I wasn't particularly keen on. But I really enjoyed her. I thought it was great. And it's kind of like the Bill Hartnell thing of, I like her character so much, I'm so pissed off about her second half. Because Louise deserved so much more for the work she was putting in. She really did.
Yeah.
And
she did.
Louise has a very, very prolific Big Finish catalogue. And that might be some new year listening is actually exploring her Big Finish catalogue, because I wonder if we're going to see more of the top 4 Leela in Big Finish and less of the bottom 5.
From personal experience, make sure you listen to her appearance on Jago and Lightfoot. But like, one thing I love is, and we continually see it as well, right, is actors who have been on the show as companions or doctors and who have been burned quite badly by the powers that be within the BBC, like fuck it, Maureen O'Brien or even Colin Baker, who we're going to get to at the time, but they are involved so heavily in Big Finish or the convention circuit, and they're proudly flying the flag for this franchise. I think it's I love that. Like, and it's one thing like they they leave, they're not happy with the way they leave, or the way they leave is very controversial, but they love what it represents and they love what it meant to them.
One thing I didn't have a chance to do with the Leela stories, just because of timing and stuff, I was very busy at work or whatever, is, so I watched the episodes, and I watched for the season I watched the Behind the Sofa Blu-ray thing. I didn't watch the episodes with the audio commentary on. I might do that over Christmas. I might do the first 4 with the audio commentary on, because I love audio commentaries. They're fucking brilliant. I'm kind of tempted to do her first 4 with the audio commentary, because the audio commentaries were kind of recorded when the DVDs first came out. So particularly Tom was younger when they were recorded. But they were recorded in like the 2000s, like early to mid, like late 2000s, early 2010s. So yeah, that might be some Christmas watching for me. It's like I bought a PS5 so that I could watch the Doctor Who 1970s episodes with the audio commentary on.
Nerd.
Because why not? I have to buy it for something.
Not God of War Ragnarok, no. Audio commentaries. Yeah.
Audio commentary and the Astro Playroom that comes built in.
Which is a lot of fun.
Which is actually
to be fair.
that's what I'm most looking forward to playing when I open it. That's really good. Anyway, we've gone on a rambling, as is our wont. This is a long rambling. Is this longer than Sarah Jane's rambling? It might be.
Possibly.
But like we said, next week, another rambling. Which is just going to be fucking random. So this episode will go out on Monday. We do usually record on a Thursday, So if you're listening
Yes,
to this
that
on
is
the day it
true.
goes out, you do have a chance to send us over some questions if there's anything you want us to answer in next week's episode. We will also put it on Facebook and Twitter in advance. Anyway,
Yep, that is true.
otherwise, tune in next week for more random shite.
Yes, absolutely.
Really selling it there,
Or-
Trish.
Or Mrs. If you think about it.
Oh,
Cool.
bye.
Until then, guys. Bye.